The meeting at midnight. The night was quiet, yet heavy with the kind of silence that makes every small sound echo deeper. A distant streetlight flickered near the old diner on the corner, its glow weak but persistent. Inside, a few scattered customers kept their heads low, sipping on coffee that had long gone cold. Behind the counter, the waitress hummed softly, trying to pass the hours until dawn. Keanu Reeves sat alone in a booth near the window. His face, calm but tired, looked out at the street as if he were waiting for something. He had lived long enough to recognize when trouble was close. His instincts, sharpened by years of surviving both chaos and calm, whispered that the night was not finished. Minutes later, the door swung open. Ronda Rousey stepped inside, her steps slow, her expression drawn with weariness. She had fought many battles in life, but tonight she looked more like someone carrying an invisible weight than a fighter ready for war. Her jacket was pulled tight, her hair slightly messy from the wind. She scanned the room, and when her eyes met Keanu's, there was a flicker of recognition, not of fame, not of names, but of two people who had seen too much of the world to be surprised by its darkness. She slid into the booth across from him. Neither spoke at first. The silence between them was not awkward. It was protective. Sometimes words broke walls too soon, and tonight they both needed those walls. "Long night?" Keanu finally asked, his voice soft, almost hesitant. Ronda gave a small, tired smile. "Long life." She looked down at her hands, resting on the table. Her knuckles carried faint scars, but tonight they trembled ever so slightly. Before Keanu could respond, the diner door opened again, this time with force. A man walked in wearing a uniform, but something about him felt off. His badge gleamed under the light, but his eyes carried no authority, only rage. He moved with the kind of swagger that did not belong to someone serving the law, but to someone hiding behind it. The waitress froze as he passed, her humming cut short. A man at the counter lowered his gaze. Ronda stiffened in her seat. Keanu's calm eyes followed the newcomer with quiet precision, every detail noted: the heavy boots, the way his hand hovered too close to his holster, the sneer curling on his lips. "You think you can run from me?" the man growled, his eyes locked on Ronda. She said nothing. Her silence was not fear, it was defiance. But Keanu could see the storm behind her steady look. The man slammed his hand on the table beside her, rattling the cups. "You think you can embarrass me in front of everyone and just walk away? I'm not done with you." The diner went dead silent. No one moved. The air itself felt heavier. Ronda's jaw tightened, but her eyes stayed steady. Keanu leaned forward slightly, his voice still calm. "That's enough." The man turned, sneering. "And who are you supposed to be? Some washed-up actor who thinks he's a hero? This is between me and her." Keanu's eyes did not waver. "You've already made it between all of us the moment you walked in." The rogue cop's face twisted. His pride burned hotter than any logic. He reached down toward his side, his movement sharp, threatening. Ronda's fists clenched under the table, ready to explode into action, but Keanu's hand moved first. Not fast, not aggressive, just steady, rising between them like a barrier. "Think very carefully," Keanu said, his voice dropping lower, every word cutting through the air like steel. "What you do next will decide everything. Not just for you, for her, for everyone watching." The cop froze. His hand hovered. The diner customers held their breath. Ronda's voice finally broke the silence. "You've already lost. You just don't see it yet." Her words struck deeper than any punch. The man's face reddened, his rage boiling over. He drew a step closer, but Keanu stood now, rising slowly, his frame calm yet unshakable. There was no fight yet, but the storm was coming. The walls of the diner seemed to close in, the tension coiling tighter with every second. Rhonda's eyes narrowed, Keanu's hand steadied, and the rogue cop's anger threatened to spill into violence. And that was when the first twist of the night revealed itself. A voice came from behind them, low, steady, and filled with authority that demanded respect. "Drop your hand," the stranger said. Everyone turned. Another figure had stepped inside, his badge real, his presence undeniable. He was not here by accident. He had been watching, waiting, and the story was only beginning. The stranger's warning, the diner door creaked as it closed, and the second figure stepped fully into the light. Unlike the rogue cop, this man carried no false bravado. His presence was calm but firm, the kind of presence that made others stop without being asked. His uniform was crisp, his badge real, and his eyes sharp but steady. "Drop your hand," he repeated, his voice controlled, giving no space for misunderstanding. The rogue cop hesitated. His pride pulled him forward, but his instincts warned him back. The silence stretched long and heavy. Rhonda sat still, her body coiled, ready for whatever storm was about to come. Keanu stood between them, his calm face unshaken, like an anchor holding against waves of rage. Finally, the rogue cop snarled and pulled his hand away from his belt, but instead of backing down, he leaned forward, his words low and venomous. "You think you can embarrass me in front of all these people? You think she can just walk away after what she did?" Rhonda's eyes flashed, her voice steady but laced with fire. "What I did was refuse to let you abuse your power. That's what this is about, isn't it? Not the law, not justice, just you and your ego." The customers inside shifted uneasily. Some turned their faces away, but their ears stayed tuned to every word. No one wanted to be part of this moment, yet none could look away. Keanu spoke softly, almost like he was speaking only to Rhonda, though everyone heard. "He wants control. Don't give it to him. Truth takes his power away faster than fists ever could." The rogue cop slammed his fist against the table again, but this time Keanu did not flinch. The real officer stepped closer, his tone sharpened. "You're off duty, and you're out of line. One more move, and I'll make sure you answer for it." For a moment, the rogue cop froze, his face twisted with frustration, his pride bleeding under the weight of exposure. He looked around, noticing the quiet stares of the customers, the fear, the judgment. But pride does not die easily. He pointed a shaking finger at Rhonda. "This isn't over. You think one night changes anything? You'll regret this." He turned sharply and stormed out of the diner, the door banging behind him. The air inside felt lighter, but only slightly. Rhonda let out a breath she didn't realize she had been holding. Her hands finally unclenched under the table, though her muscles still trembled with tension. Keanu sat down again, his movements slow, as if lowering himself into the moment rather than the booth. The stranger, the real officer, lingered near their table. "Are you all right?" he asked, his tone not demanding but respectful. Rhonda looked up, her eyes meeting his. "I'm fine. I've been through worse. But thank you." The officer nodded. "He's been on our radar. Too many complaints, too many warnings ignored. But tonight might be what we needed to hold him accountable." Keanu tilted his head. "So you were following him?" The officer gave a small, tired smile. "Following people like him is my job, but he's slippery, never leaves enough evidence. Tonight, though..." He paused, glancing at the other diners. Tonight, he slipped. Rhonda's expression hardened. "He'll come back. Men like that don't disappear quietly. He'll try again, and he won't care who gets hurt in the process." Keanu leaned forward, his voice quiet but certain. "Then we'll be ready." The officer studied Keanu for a long moment, then looked at Rhonda. "You're right. He won't stop easily, but you're not alone in this." His words carried weight, and yet behind them was something more, a hidden warning, almost a foreshadowing. The waitress, who had stood frozen behind the counter, finally stepped forward with a pot of coffee. Her hands shook slightly as she poured into their cups. "On the house," she whispered, her voice trembling. "Thank you for standing up to him. No one else ever has." Rhonda gave her a small nod, her eyes softening. Sometimes silence is survival, but tonight, silence would have cost too much. Keanu looked around the diner. Every face was different: fear, relief, unease. But one thing connected them all. They had witnessed a truth that could no longer be hidden. And in that moment, something shifted. It wasn't just about Rhonda anymore. It wasn't just about a rogue cop abusing power. It was about everyone in the room realizing that fear only grows when left unchallenged. But even as that thought settled, Keanu's instincts sharpened again. He leaned slightly toward the window, his eyes narrowing. Across the street, under the weak glow of the streetlight, a dark car sat idling, its headlights off, its engine running. Rhonda noticed it too. Her voice dropped low. "He didn't go far." The officer turned his head, his jaw tightening. The storm was not over. It had only stepped outside to gather strength. Shadows outside the hum of the car engine outside became the only sound anyone could hear. It was steady, low, and menacing, like a heartbeat waiting to explode. The customers inside the diner shifted uneasily, their eyes flicking toward the window, but none dared to move closer. The waitress clutched her apron, her face pale. Keanu didn't look away from the glass. His instincts, sharpened over years of watching people and learning silence, told him everything he needed to know. The rogue cop hadn't left to cool off. He was waiting. Waiting for them to step outside, waiting for the right moment to make his anger permanent. Rhonda leaned forward, her voice low but strong. "He's not done. I know that look. He's waiting for me." Keanu turned his gaze to her. "He's not waiting for you. He's waiting for revenge, and that makes him reckless." The officer who had entered earlier stepped to the window and pulled out a small notepad. He scribbled the car's license plate down quickly, his jaw tight. "I'll call this in," he muttered, reaching for his radio. But before he could speak, the diner lights flickered. Everyone froze. The hum of the car outside suddenly grew louder, and then, as if to send a message, the headlights flashed once, then went dark again. Rhonda clenched her fists on the table, the old fighter in her awakening. "He wants to scare us, make us feel small. I've felt that before, but I won't feel it again." Keanu's voice was steady, almost like he was speaking a promise to both of them. "Fear is his weapon, but fear breaks when you stand together." The officer finally spoke into his radio, his tone clipped but urgent. "Unit 47 requesting backup. Possible hostile officer outside diner on Elm and 7th. Vehicle black sedan. Plate number." He read it quickly. Then he lowered his radio and exhaled. "Help is coming. But until then, we need to keep everyone safe." The waitress swallowed hard, whispering, "Should I lock the doors?" Keanu shook his head gently. Locks won't stop him if he's desperate. But panic will. Keep calm. Pretend like nothing's changed. Fear feeds him more than anything. The customers nodded nervously, trying to follow his words. Cups were lifted, spoons clinked, but it was all forced, like actors playing roles in a scene none of them wanted to be part of. Rhonda glanced back toward the window, her eyes sharp. "He's moving." They all turned. The car door cracked open. The rogue cop stepped out slowly, his figure bathed in the weak glow of the streetlight. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't even hiding. He wanted them to see him. He wanted the whole diner to feel the weight of his presence. He adjusted his belt and started walking toward the diner. Each step echoed louder than the last, even though the glass muffled the sound. Keanu stood again, his presence calm but unshakable. Ronda rose beside him. The officer stepped forward, positioning himself between the window and the others. The rogue cop stopped just a few feet from the diner door. His smile was twisted, his eyes burning with something far darker than pride now. He pointed at Ronda through the glass. "This doesn't end here," he mouthed silently. Ronda's jaw clenched. Every part of her wanted to storm outside and finish what he had started. But Keanu touched her arm lightly, his voice low, grounding her. Not like this. Not on his terms. For the first time, her anger cracked, replaced by something more vulnerable. She whispered, "He won't stop until he destroys me." Keanu met her eyes. "Then we make sure he destroys himself first." The rogue cop finally turned back toward his car, but before stepping inside, he pulled something from his pocket and tossed it onto the diner steps. Then he drove off into the night, the hum of the engine fading into silence. No one moved at first. The object lay just outside the glass door, small, dark, and mysterious. The officer slowly pushed the door open and bent down, picking it up with gloved hands. When he returned, his face was grim. In his palm lay a single bullet. The room went silent again, heavier than before. Ronda's face hardened, her fists clenching. A threat. A promise. Keanu's voice, calm but cold, cut through the tension. No. A mistake. He just gave us proof of his intent. The officer nodded. And that proof might finally bring him down. But his tone carried no comfort, only urgency. We have to move. He won't stop tonight. He's planning something bigger. Ronda leaned back in the booth, her eyes glimmering with both anger and exhaustion. Then let's not wait for him. Let's find him first. Keanu studied her, his calm gaze steady. Sometimes the best defense is patience. But sometimes... You're right. Outside, the night grew darker, the streetlights flickering like weak candles in the wind. The bullet on the table gleamed faintly under the diner's light, a symbol of both threat and warning. And as the three of them sat together, it became clear. The battle ahead wasn't just about Ronda. It wasn't just about a rogue cop. It was about standing against fear itself, fear dressed in a badge, fear hiding behind authority. And this fight had only just begun. The trap in the dark, the bullet sat on the table between them like a living thing. No one touched it. No one spoke for a long moment. Every diner customer stared at it, and the silence thickened until even the sound of the coffee machine in the back felt too loud. Keanu's eyes never left the small piece of metal. His calm expression didn't change, but something in the set of his jaw hardened. He had seen warnings before. This wasn't a warning. It was bait. Ronda leaned forward, her voice low but cutting through the silence. He wants me to come after him. He wants me to step outside, angry, careless. He thinks he knows me. Keanu nodded slowly. Because that's what people like him depend on. They want you to fight on their terms. They want you to burn fast so they can claim victory. He paused, his eyes lifting to hers. But your strength has never been in rage. It's in control. For a moment, Ronda's face softened. She hated that he was right. She hated even more that the man outside knew how to use her pride against her. The officer finally spoke, his tone grave. I've already called for backup, but I need to be honest. If he's gone rogue, he may have friends on the force willing to look the other way. Until we know who to trust, we move carefully. The waitress, who had been frozen in the corner, stepped closer with a shaky voice. You should go, please. If he comes back, I don't know if this place can hold up. Keanu turned toward her, his expression softening. Leaving won't stop him. It will just move the danger somewhere else. But we won't let it touch you. The waitress blinked, startled by the calm certainty in his tone. She backed away slowly, comforted but still trembling. Suddenly, a loud crash echoed outside. Every head snapped toward the windows. The black sedan was gone, but in its place, a second car rolled up. Darker, larger. Two silhouettes sat inside, unmoving. Ronda whispered, "He brought backup." The officer's hand went to his radio, but Keanu placed a hand on his arm gently, shaking his head. "Not yet. If we panic, they'll know we're afraid." The two figures in the car didn't move. The headlights stayed off, but the faint glow from the diner revealed their outlines. They weren't here to eat. They weren't here by accident. Ronda stood slowly, her muscles tense. "We can't sit here like prey. I won't." Keanu's voice was steady but commanding, a quiet force that anchored the room. "You're not prey, but don't mistake patience for weakness. The longer they wait, the more desperate they become. And desperation always makes mistakes." His words settled like a blanket over the room. Even the frightened customers seemed to breathe easier, clinging to the idea that calm could still exist in the middle of fear. But then the tension snapped. The diner's power went out. Darkness swallowed everything. The hum of the lights and machines cut to silence. Only the weak glow of the streetlight outside leaked in through the windows, stretching shadows long and sharp across the floor. A scream came from the back of the diner. Someone dropped a cup, the shattering echo ringing like a gunshot. Ronda reacted first. She reached across the counter and grabbed a small flashlight the waitress had been keeping nearby. The beam flicked on, cutting through the dark. Her eyes scanned the room. "Stay calm," she said firmly. "Everyone stay where you are." But the calm was broken again when the sound of footsteps echoed outside. Slow, deliberate, moving closer. Keanu turned his head toward the door. He could hear it clearly. The scrape of boots against pavement, the low murmur of men speaking to each other just beyond the glass. The officer drew his sidearm, his voice low but urgent. "He's escalating. This isn't just intimidation anymore. This is a trap." Keanu's gaze sharpened. "Then we don't play into it. We turn it back on him." Ronda's flashlight beam swept across the window just in time to catch movement. One of the figures leaned forward, his face partly revealed. He wasn't just another officer. He wore no uniform. "Not cops," Ronda muttered. "Friends. The kind who don't care about law." The officer's voice dropped lower. "Off-duty mercenaries. He's paying them to do his dirty work." The weight of the situation finally settled in. This wasn't going to end with words anymore. Keanu straightened, his calm still unbroken, but there was a spark in his eyes now, a spark that meant he was done waiting. He turned to Ronda. "You said he wants you to fight. Maybe that's exactly what we should give him. But not on his terms, on yours." Her lips curved into the faintest smile, not of joy but of resolve. "Then let's make sure he regrets bringing backup." Outside, the footsteps grew louder. The door handle rattled once. Inside, Ronda lifted the flashlight higher, her fists clenched tight. The officer raised his weapon, steady and sharp. Keanu stepped forward, placing himself between the door and everyone else, his presence unshaken. The first knock on the glass echoed like thunder. The night had crossed its line. The first knock on the glass was followed by another, heavier, sharper. The sound rattled the diner's windows and sent a shiver through the room. No one spoke. No one moved. Even the customers held their breath, as if silence itself might keep the danger outside. Ronda stood tall, the flashlight beam steady in her hands. Her eyes burned with focus, not fear. She had faced opponents in cages, under lights, with the roar of thousands around her. But this was different. This wasn't sport. This was survival. Keanu's voice was low, almost a whisper, but it carried to everyone in the diner. Don't panic. Panic is what they want. Keep your eyes open. Stay calm. The officer tightened his grip on his sidearm. His eyes stayed locked on the door, waiting for the exact moment the storm would break. Then it came. The glass shattered. A brick, wrapped in cloth, flew through the front window and skidded across the diner floor. The customers screamed, some diving under tables. The waitress fell back against the counter, her hands covering her face. The night air rushed in through the broken window. Heavy boots crunched against the shards as two figures stepped inside, their faces half covered, their bodies broad and deliberate. The leader was not the rogue cop. He was still outside, waiting, watching. These were his hands, sent to do his work. Ronda stepped forward, the beam of her flashlight blinding the first man. Without hesitation, she moved. Her fist cut through the dark, striking the intruder hard across the jaw. The crack of bone echoed in the diner, and the man staggered back, crashing into a table. The second man lunged toward her, swinging wild in the dark. Ronda ducked, the beam shaking but steady enough to guide her. She countered with a sharp elbow to his ribs, followed by a kick that sent him sprawling against the counter. The customers gasped, but their fear turned into something else, astonishment. They had never seen anyone move like that. Precise, fearless, controlled. Keanu, calm even in the chaos, stepped forward as the first man tried to rise. He didn't strike hard, he didn't need to. He grabbed the man's arm, twisted it behind his back, and pushed him down flat against the floor, his movements smooth, almost effortless. "Stay down," Keanu said quietly, his tone leaving no room for argument. The officer kept his weapon trained on the second man, who groaned and tried to crawl back toward the door. "Don't!" the officer barked, his voice sharp. Outside, the sound of laughter carried through the broken glass. The rogue cop's voice followed, cold and mocking. "Look at you, hiding in a diner, thinking you can win. This is only the beginning." Ronda turned toward the window, her chest heaving, her eyes narrowing. "You're a coward, sending others to do what you're too afraid to face yourself." His voice grew louder, more venomous. "You don't get it, do you? This isn't about fear, it's about control. I'll take everything from you, piece by piece, until you beg for silence." Keanu stood beside Ronda, his calm presence steadying her fire. Control doesn't come from fear. It comes from respect. And you've already lost that. For a moment, silence followed. Then the rogue cop's laugh echoed again, fading as the sound of his car engine roared back to life. The headlights flashed across the diner once, and then the car sped off into the night. The two men he had left behind lay defeated on the floor, groaning. The officer moved quickly, securing their hands behind their backs with zip ties he carried in his belt. "They're not the main threat," he muttered. "He is, and he's planning something worse." Ronda wiped sweat from her brow, her breathing heavy but controlled. "Then we don't wait for him to strike again. We take the fight to him." The officer shook his head. "He's unpredictable. If you go after him without a plan, you'll walk into another trap." Keanu's eyes were steady, calm, but his voice carried weight. "Then we need to turn his trap against him. Use his anger, his arrogance. It's the only way to end this before someone innocent gets hurt." The waitress, still trembling, stepped forward timidly. Her voice was soft, but it broke through the heavy silence. "Please, whatever you do, don't let him come back here. This place is all I have." Ronda looked at her, and in that moment, the fighter's resolve hardened into something deeper. It wasn't just about her anymore. It was about everyone who lived in the shadow of men like him. She placed a hand gently on the waitress's shoulder. "He won't touch this place again, I promise." Keanu glanced at the broken window, the glass scattered across the floor, the bullet still gleaming on the table. He spoke quietly, but his words held a promise of their own. The storm isn't over, but storms always pass. Outside, far in the distance, the sound of sirens finally echoed. Backup was coming, but Keanu, Ronda, and the officer all knew the truth. By the time those sirens reached them, the real battle would already have begun. The last stand, the sirens grew louder in the distance, but everyone inside the diner knew they were too late. The real fight wasn't going to wait for uniforms and flashing lights. The rogue cop wasn't running. He was circling. His laughter had already proved that. Ronda stood near the broken window, her shoulders squared, her jaw tight. Keanu stayed beside her, calm as ever, his eyes scanning the shadows outside. The officer secured the two mercenaries, dragging them into the back corner, but his voice carried the truth. He'll come back before the others arrive. He wants to end this himself. Keanu nodded slowly, then led him. Ronda turned, her eyes fierce. I won't let him keep control of this. Not over me. Not over anyone here. Keanu's voice dropped low, steady, grounding her. Then don't fight his rage with rage. Fight it with strength he doesn't understand. Strength that doesn't break. The waitress stood frozen by the counter, tears in her eyes. Please, I don't want anyone to die. Keanu turned his head gently toward her. No one will die tonight. Before she could answer, headlights flared outside. The rogue cop's black sedan screeched to a stop directly in front of the diner. This time he didn't wait. This time, he wanted the whole world to see. The driver's side door flew open and he stepped out. His eyes were wild, his face twisted in fury, his badge still clipped to his chest like a mask hiding rot. In his hand was a baton, heavy and cruel. He shouted into the night, his voice echoing through the shattered window. You think you've humiliated me? You think you can stand against me? I'll show you what happens when you cross me. Ronda didn't wait. She pushed the diner door open and stepped out into the night air. The streetlight above buzzed weakly, casting both of them in fractured shadows. No more running, she said, her voice sharp. You want me? Here I am. He sneered, spinning the baton once in his hand. You think fists will save you? I'll break you. But Ronda wasn't alone. Keanu stepped out quietly behind her, his presence steady, his gaze unshakable. No, he said softly, but his voice cut like steel. You'll break yourself. The rogue cop roared and lunged forward. His baton swung fast, slicing the air toward Ronda's head. She ducked, her body moving with years of training. Her fist shot upward, striking his ribs, the crack echoing through the street. He staggered back but came again, his swings wild now. Ronda blocked one strike with her arm, pain flashing across her face but not slowing her. She drove a sharp knee into his stomach, forcing him back again. Keanu stepped forward as the man raised his baton high for another strike. With precise calm, he caught the cop's wrist mid-swing. His grip was iron, his voice low. It's over! The rogue cop snarled, twisting, trying to break free, but Keanu held him, his calm stronger than rage. Ronda struck again, this time with a final sharp punch to his jaw. The baton fell, clattering to the pavement. The rogue cop collapsed to his knees, groaning, his pride shattered more than his body. The sirens drew closer, the red and blue lights now reflecting against the diner windows. Ronda stood over him, her chest heaving, her fists trembling not with fear but with release. You don't control me, she said. You never did. Keanu released his grip and stepped back, his face calm, his eyes softening as he looked at her. Strength isn't about striking first. It's about standing when others try to push you down. The squad cars finally arrived, doors flying open, officers rushing forward. They froze when they saw who lay on the ground. Their faces told the truth. They had suspected him for a long time. The officer from the diner stepped out, raising his voice. "He's done. He's finished. And this time there's no escaping it." The rogue cop was dragged to his feet, his eyes still burning with fury but his power gone. The other officers placed him in the back of a squad car, his shouts muffled as the door slammed shut. The street grew quiet again. The broken glass glittered on the pavement. The night air carried a sense of something ending. The waitress stepped outside, her eyes wide with both relief and awe. You saved all of us." Rhonda shook her head gently. "No, we just stood up when it mattered, that's all." Keanu looked at the shattered diner window, then back at the group. "Glass can break, fear can break, but people can stand back up." The officer placed a hand on Rhonda's shoulder. "You gave us what we needed, the courage to act. Now he'll face the justice he's been running from." Rhonda looked at Keanu, her eyes tired but steady. "Thank you. If you hadn't been here..." He shook his head softly. "You didn't need me. You had the strength all along, I just reminded you." For the first time that night, Rhonda smiled, not out of relief, but out of something deeper. Strength mixed with peace. The sirens faded as the squad cars pulled away, leaving the quiet street behind. The storm had passed. Inside the diner, the customers began to rise slowly from their seats. Some offered nods, some whispered thanks, but all of them carried the same look, the look of people who had witnessed something they would never forget. Rhonda and Keanu walked back inside together. The broken glass still crunched under their feet, but the air was lighter now. The waitress poured 2 fresh cups of coffee with shaking hands, setting them down at their booth. "On the house," she said softly again, her voice steadier this time. Rhonda took a sip, her hand finally still. Keanu looked out the window, the faintest trace of dawn creeping into the horizon. "The night is always darkest before the light," he murmured. "But the light always comes." And for the first time in hours, the diner felt safe again.